Have you ever heard the saying, HR is your playwright, not your best supporting actor? You may not have heard that. I made it up. But if you have heard it, great. That means it's caught on. But the point is that oftentimes HR is looked at as the messenger, that if you have a difficult message or any type of message, looking to HR to deliver that as opposed to you as a manager. Now, a lot of people ask, what's the problem with that? Shouldn't HR be the one interacting with employees? And certainly, but there are 3 specific scenarios that your messaging is going to be so much more important than HR's. And I'll walk you through those and why it's important that HR be a resource, not your messenger. The first is onboarding. So as employees come aboard, ideally in your organization, there will be some sort of streamlined onboarding, and HR can be a part of that. Sending documentations, you may have an HR portal where they're able to do that, but a lot of organizations don't have a dedicated HR onboarding process, and HR isn't able to guide every employee step by step. This is why it's so important that you as a manager take a very heavy role in onboarding, because as employees start, sure, they're going to want to know things like policies in the handbook, how they do their benefits, their pay, all of that's super important. But after day 1, their actual experience is what it's like working for you, and with the team. So you need to have that role. That can be really hard as a manager. How do I fit things in? Well, that's why we've created things like, let me write that down, the new employee's guidebook. So if nothing else, you can get that guidebook and give it to your employees. But as a manager, making sure that you take that time. In Manager 101, we walk through onboarding and very specific steps that you can take in a moment's notice and really small actions, but to show the employee that they're there under your leadership and you're paving the way. This can mean having opportunities to talk to you directly, having you check in on them every day or at the end of every week, ideally every day, having them shadow you in meetings and things like that so that they can get the sense of what it's like day to day and have that true learning for you. Because onboarding is not just HR's opportunity and their responsibility. A lot of it's on you. 2 is when an employee has performance challenges. So sometimes a manager will say, HR, can you talk to them about this? They did that wrong. Now, what's the problem there? Well, HR may be used to having some conversations like that. In HR, ideally, we have training and unfortunately experience working with employees in more challenging times. But as a manager, if you have an employee have a conversation with HR and they get talked to about their performance, and that's coming from HR, not from you, it feels really weird. And that employee leaves that meeting, goes back to work, and may be slinking around thinking, okay, should I say something to my manager? It can be incredibly awkward. So you as a manager need to know how to have very direct performance conversations with employees. And those should not just be during the annual performance review, but that is during one-on-one meetings, ongoing feedback, and being able to have that conversation. This is why HR is your resource and is your playwright. So if an employee has performance challenges or has things like that from time to time, HR often can help you in the background. How do you have talking points for a conversation? What should you say in an email script? But if you start deflecting conversations to HR or looping them in on emails, it can truly escalate things and make it really hard on a day-to-day basis to truly work with that employee. So that's why, as a manager and as a leader, a big learning step can be learning how to have those conversations. And the last is terminations. So one thing that you're seeing now is mass emails or maybe a video call from a CEO and then passing everything off to HR to answer the questions. Layoffs are terrible experiences. You'll hear that in virtually every video I do. It's no surprise how I feel. But it can feel so much more terrible than bearable when an employee isn't even having the opportunity to talk directly to their manager or hear things. So ideally in scenarios, as you're having a termination conversation, you as the manager are talking to that employee, giving them the dignity of your time. And that can often mean having scripting from your playwright, HR, or legal, but doing things like reading through that so you can look at the employee in the eye, even if it's over a video camera, but to give them that respect and give them the time. And staying on that call, even if you're nervous, you feel uncomfortable, the employee's going to feel a lot worse. And so staying on that call, even as they have questions with HR, and they may want to reach out to HR separately for very HR-specific things. But giving employees dignity in those times when they've worked for you and you have been their one source of truth as a manager, that's incredibly important in your leadership. So as I say, HR should be thought of as a playwright. And your legal, if you have in-house legal as well, may be the same way. can often help. One thing I've done often in my career is to help people to have different types of conversations in a more clear and caring way. So you can get things like talking points. But as a manager, your employees are largely looking at you to have the positive conversations, but also in tough times, be able to deliver those with candor and with care.